Hey everybody, it's Michael here for the Fellowship of Acoustics, and this video is for the banjo players out there, because if you've seen the previous video that we made with Greg Deering, which was actually from 3 years ago, this is another one from that same backlog of footage, because we also did an extensive interview with Greg and Janet, mostly Greg though, and he tells all about banjos, the history all the way back to when he started as a 16-year-old teenager, how they met and how banjo became a thing in his life. So we still really wanted to share this interview with you because he gives some beautiful insights on how to make banjos, how they all came to life, how they came to be. So here it is, raw and uncut, an interview by Kylie with Greg and Janet Deering. Enjoy.
Well, Greg and Janet, we're super excited that you're here at the Fellowship of Acoustics. I grew up playing bluegrass music and have been around so many Deering Banjos in my life. It's really also cool for me that you're here and that I get to sit and talk with you. But yeah, I thought we'd just talk a little bit about kind of Deering Banjos. Maybe you start off by telling us kind of how Deering Banjos got started.
Okay. Well, the most fundamental foundation behind how we got started was growing up. I was fortunate to have a father that was a master craftsman. Wow. He was an aerospace engineer, and he built model airplanes, and he was a master craftsman, and he started teaching me to build model airplanes when I was 2 years old. Wow. He turned me loose to build my first flying scale model, a Curtiss Robin, when I was 5. Wow. And he bought me a set of drafting tools and started teaching me to be a draftsman when I was 7. And he was very intense. But it was the kind of thing where I loved every minute of it. I couldn't get enough of it. So I grew up with that. Yeah. And I fell in love with music. My next door neighbors, when I was a little boy, played in a youth symphony. And I just thought that was so fascinating. So in grade school, I started playing the violin. And I played the violin and the viola all the way through high school. And in junior high school, playing the viola, my best friend was the French horn player. And he could play the guitar. And he had a Kingston Trio album. And he put the album on, and all this magical music started coming out, and he picked up a guitar and started playing along with the record. Thought I died and gone to heaven. And so Chris had a guitar. At that moment, I had to get a banjo. And I was 13 years old. It was 1963. And from then on, my main focus was on the banjo and folk music. I even learned to play the guitar and just fell in love with the music and couldn't get enough of it, always reaching for more and more. When I got into college, I needed a better banjo. Couldn't afford it. So I took a woodshop class at San Diego State and built my first banjo. And happened that there was 2 other guys in that same woodshop class that were on their own building guitars, and they were going to open a shop not too far from the college in Lemon Grove, and they were going to call the shop the American Dream. And I got to be part of that. They were building guitars, and I did repair work so that they didn't have to, and built banjos. And that lasted, I was there for almost 4 years. Okay. And, but that is a little bit about me, but Jan and I grew up in the same church, and when I was in college, I was the advisor for the high school youth group. And Janet was in the high school youth group, and she was waiting for a ride home one night. Well, you can tell the story there.
We were waiting for my mom to pick me up, and he said to me, so, what do you want to do with your life? I said, well, I want to have a family business.
Wow.
And I'd like to do something. I took crafts classes, and I was taking woodshop, and I said, I'd like to make something valuable that would be passed down generation to generation. I did a lot of pottery. I didn't want to do pottery. I wanted to do something that would last. Yeah. And he goes, really? And I said, yeah. He goes, well, I want a family business, and I want to make banjos. And I said, really? What's a banjo?
And I said, you know that round thing that I play in church?
He goes, yeah, that's the banjo. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's cool. I was 16.
Yeah.
And he was 20. So he's 4 years older. But that's, you don't date at those ages, you don't generally date. So we didn't date. We just, had that aha moment of, oh, here's somebody with the same goals.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually date till I
And
was
our
19.
paths crossed another almost 4 years later, 3 years later when she was 19. And the next thing you know, we were engaged.
Wow.
So we had the goal to have a family business. And when we first got married, she had a job in Washington, D.C., so we were out of town for about 10 months. And to backtrack a little bit, when I was working at the American Dream, I played in a folk rock group, and there was two young men, John and Tony Prim, that went to Madison High School. And they told me that there was a new kid in school that played the banjo. And I didn't want to hear about that. But I showed up to John and Tony's house one day to practice, and here's this kid with the banjo. And he's pretty good. And I said, how long have you been playing? And he goes, well, about 6 years. No, he said about 6 months. And I've been playing for 6 years, and he's better than me. But anyway, that young man was Bob Taylor. It was before he built his first guitar.
Wow.
And I told him about the American Dream. He came out and bought some fret wire and some binding and went back to his high school woodshop class and built a guitar. And when he got out of high school, he started hanging out at the American Dream and got to be part of it. So while we were gone, the owner of the American Dream decided to close the shop up. But instead of closing, Bob and his friend Kurt, and they had a third partner in the beginning, but talked Sam into selling the shop to them, and they started Taylor Guitars.
Wow.
So when we got back to town, it was Taylor Guitars. And I actually went to work for Bob and Kurt for about 3 months. And I started doing a lot of work building 5-string necks for old Gibson tenors for a guy in town. And then he came to me and wanted me to build, he had an idea for a new drum for banjos. And he had me start making necks for him, and that was Jeff Stelling. And then Jeff came to us and said, let's be partners. So I quit Taylor Guitars, and Jeff and I and Janet, we were partners for about 6 months. And then he decided he didn't want a partner. So he told us, start Deering Banjo Company and I'll contract you to make the banjos. So we did, and that was in the summer of '75. And the American Dream started in May of 1970, but in '75 we started Deering Banjo Company, and we made the first 600 Stelling banjos.
Okay.
That lasted until just before Thanksgiving in '77, and Stelling decided that he could take all our employees and build banjos without us, and told us to get out of his building. Didn't realize all the machinery was mine.
Yeah.
So he had to completely tool up again.
Wow.
So we moved into our garage and started all over again. And started with a banjo called the Intermediate, which is basically what our Boston is today. And I've always been motivated to make a banjo that I could have afforded when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When I started playing the banjo I wanted was the Vega Pete Seeger model. And in 1963, a Vega Pete Seeger model was $420. And in 1963, you could buy a brand new car for $700, $800.
Wow.
So a 13-year-old wasn't going to be coming up with $400.
Yeah.
So I wanted to build banjos that are good banjos that I could have afforded when I was a kid. And we're still working on that.
Wow.
Keeping more banjo value in our banjos. It's like our Sierra model. It's not an inexpensive banjo, but the amount of banjo you get for the money is really, really good.
Yeah.
So we just basically started over and gradually have just built up. We've never set out to be the biggest banjo company, but we've always set out to do a good job and to do better today than we did yesterday.
Yeah.
And when you do that, growth is kind of inevitable.
Yeah.
One of the lessons that we learned very early on is that when a new business starts, there's a high percentage of new businesses that fail.
Yeah.
But we learned that most of the businesses that fail hit a set of problems that they didn't want to handle. So they quit.
Mm-hmm.
And we made a pact with each other that no matter what, we wouldn't quit.
Wow.
We hit lots of problems. And we had to tighten our belt many, many, many times.
Yeah.
But we survived the first year and, started gradually growing. And we've gotten to the point now where we have 40-some people working for the company.
Yeah.
And we're putting out between 150 and 200 banjos a week.
Wow.
And I think we're about to hit 180,000 banjos total that we've made in our career.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We never sat down and go, Janet, let's build 180,000 banjos.
Can you imagine?
That never occurred to us.
That would have been overwhelming.
Yeah. What do you want to do with your life? I think I want to build 180,000 banjos.
But at the same time, when we were all kids first starting out, if somebody would have come and told us where we were going to end up 45, 48 years later,
amazing.
it would have been hard to believe.
Yeah. Wow. And just by kind of sticking together and that it is a family business, like that seems like that's what's got it through. It's amazing.
Another thing that was interesting about being in business when we first started out is the majority of people we shared our dreams with told us we were nuts.
Wow.
Told us we had no business doing that. In fact, there was a lady that was part of a group that played at San Diego State once in a while, and I wanted to take a banjo lesson from her. So I went to her house, and I happened to mention that I was going to build a banjo. And she lectured me for about 20 minutes, telling me how I had no business building a banjo. I would just ruin a perfectly good piece of wood.
Oh, my goodness.
Can you imagine?
So,
How to motivate a young student.
Wow.
so I learned very early on not to listen to people like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even my parents thought I was nuts.
Wow.
At least at first. Once the business began to grow, they understood that it was something very worthwhile. And they fell in love with Janet. Janet, being part of the business, helped me win them over.
Yeah. That's really
And
cool.
they went on to really respect and admire the business.
Yeah, they appreciated what we were doing. After we got it up and running and proved that you could actually put food on the table this way,
Yeah.
then it was okay.
But
Yeah. Despite what all the banjo jokes tell you.
That's right. You can make banjos and eat dinner.
well, being an entrepreneur is something that not everybody is. And neither my parents are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're not really good people. They're very, very talented people. But one of my definitions of an entrepreneur is something we experienced many times in the early years. Payday was Wednesday. And if we could go to bed on Tuesday night and actually get some sleep, not knowing where payroll was coming from, that's what an entrepreneur is.
When you can live with those.
We always managed to
Possibilities.
find payroll the next day. We never didn't make it, but we didn't always know where it was coming from. And if you can sleep in spite of that,
Yeah.
you're probably an entrepreneur.
There's a lot of faith
Yeah.
involved.
Definitely.
You have to have faith.
Definitely. Wow. Yeah. So you're in business, what now? You say you started in...
It's 48 years.
48 years. Wow.
Yeah. Next year, it'll be our 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
And the following year will be our 50th business
Wow.
anniversary.
Sounds like a big party.
Yeah. A lot to celebrate.
Yeah.
Both of our kids grew up in the business. Our son is not part of the business now. He's a computer guy. And
But
our
he
daughter,
helps us with our computers. So he's that part of the business.
Yeah.
but our daughter went off on her own for quite a while, but then she came back and she's now the CEO.
Wow.
And she's smarter than we are, so she's doing it really, really well.
Keeping it in the
Really
family
well.
and-
Yeah.
wow. How cool.
Taking a load off of me, it's been great.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wow. So in the last 48 years, what kind of changes have you seen in the, I guess, folk instrument building industry?
Well, in the beginning, digital wasn't there.
Yeah.
All our machines were manual, analog machines. Tremendous amount of handwork. In the beginning, I cut all of the inlays by hand.
Oh.
I've cut tens of thousands of inlays
Wow.
with the jeweler saw. The first mechanized inlays we got cut, John Larrivee cut for us on his pantograph. I made the big patterns and he would cut them. So that gave me some relief from having to hand cut all of it. And about the time that Larrivee didn't have time to cut our inlays anymore is when we hooked up with Tom Ellis, and he was cutting them with a computerized machine. So the transition into the computer world has been huge. Taylor Guitars made that transition much earlier than we did because they grew bigger than we did. Took us a lot longer to afford that.
Yeah. Wow.
And
But the first building, I mean, we didn't believe that orbital sanders were something you could, well, they didn't even exist.
Yeah.
But, so I would tape my fingers with tape.
Yeah.
So that as I hand sanded the file marks out of the back of a neck, I wouldn't wear through my fingers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'd
in the
pull that
beginning-
tape up, put more tape on.
Yeah. Wow.
But then
We-
orbital sanders came on the scene and it was like, well, is it okay to use something
Yeah.
like that?
Well, when we first started, the orbital sanders that were there wouldn't do the job.
Yeah.
And as more industrial type sanders that would really do the job and not destroy the neck
Yeah.
became available.
Okay.
And, and so improvement in tooling, improvement in technology, developing different models. Our first banjos were in the beginning to intermediate level, and then we started doing the higher end banjos.
Yeah.
And the good time banjo was a big change for us.
Yeah.
And that banjo was, again, motivated by wanting to build a banjo that was really good, that people could afford.
Yeah.
And
I can understand that. Being
So-
the musician on the other
yeah,
side, yeah.
and sometimes those kind of projects are the hardest projects. It's actually a little easier to sit down and build a calico than it is to build a factory that can build good times.
Yeah. Wow.
From when I first figured out how to build a good time banjo to when we actually went into production and started producing them, took us 10 years.
Wow.
Because at first I couldn't convince Janet that we could make money on the banjo.
Or the accountant who kept saying, you can't charge less.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, what are you thinking? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
But
Quite a hurdle.
I never gave up, and we kept after it. We finally started making them. And when I did my time studies for the good time, to work out what kind of targets we'd have to make in order to make a profit on the banjo, in the beginning, we were just going to make the open back, and that's all. And I said, if we can make that banjo in 4 man-hours, we'll be smelling like a rose. And it took us a little while to make them in 4 man-hours. But over the years, we've improved the process too much that we routinely build good times in under 3 man-hours.
Wow.
And that's including all the resonators and all the fancier models combined.
Yeah.
So, and I credit that to the quality of our team. You know, the tooling I built and the way we've set up the factory is good. But without the team at each workstation,
Yeah.
The machines don't do anything by themselves.
Sure.
And
It's the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of the
people.
things that we share with our new staff whenever we get somebody new is I'll ask them if they think we make banjos. And they'll look at me kind of funny. And they said, yeah, you make banjos. And I said, yeah, we do. I said, but that's not our main product. And I'll turn around and write on the board the word magic. So magic, that's our product.
Yeah.
Says you need to, every single one of these banjos that you sand or that you put frets in or that you assemble, whatever you're doing, that's going to be somebody's pride and joy. That can end up under somebody's Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And you got to, if you know that and you do that extra bit of good work on it, you're adding to that magic.
Wow.
And that's the most important part.
Yeah. It's inspiring for me to hear, you know, because you can really feel that. I think, you know, I picture myself when I was young, something under the Christmas tree, right? And that magical moment, and to think, yeah, somebody put some real heart and magic into the building of that instrument is huge.
For my first banjo was an old used harmony banjo with a bakelite rim. And that didn't come under a Christmas tree. In fact, when I decided I wanted a banjo, I was a newspaper boy and I made about $20 a month. And it took me months to convince my parents it was okay for me to spend my own money on a banjo.
Yeah.
And I bought one out of the newspaper, classified ads for $20. It was a month's pay. And I still have that banjo.
Wow.
But about a year and a half later, I decided I wanted to play the guitar too. And I saw a guitar, something coming out of Japan. It was a cheap guitar called a rodeo, but it was steel stringed and it was arch fingerboard and it was $29. And I asked for that for Christmas and was shocked when I actually got it.
Yeah. Wow.
Still have that guitar too, but it's falling apart.
Yeah.
Wasn't a good guitar, but I learned to play on it.
Yeah. Special place in your heart for
Yeah.
that guitar. Yeah. Wow. So maybe just as a final question, you know, a lot of customers here at the Fellowship of Acoustics are guitar players, as you can imagine by the huge selection of guitars, but of course also banjo players. I was curious if you had maybe advice for either, I guess, firstly, people looking for a first banjo, and then also maybe advice for players, and when is the best time to upgrade?
Wow, that's a lot. One of the most important things, especially oriented towards the guitar player, is the guitar player needs to understand that you don't have to play bluegrass on the banjo. And you usually have to tell a guitar player 5 times that he doesn't have to play just bluegrass, because they'll tell me, well, I don't play bluegrass, so I can't play the banjo. Well, who said you had to play just bluegrass? And then finally they'll realize, you mean I can play anything I want on the banjo? I said, yeah, play anything you want. And we've sold a lot of banjos to guitar players that don't play bluegrass but make a lot of really good music on the banjo. And then they ask, what do you do with that short string? I says, well, just let your thumb hit it and don't worry about it. But then if you want to play bluegrass, you got to start with a 5-string. And any banjo works to start with. But if the banjo at least plays well and has a good sound, it doesn't have to be a pre-war Gibson. A good time works really, really well. The most important thing is to have an instrument that you can afford, that you don't have to fight.
Yeah.
A lot of the banjos from China, you have to fight to play. And you just practice and practice more. One of the most important things is to have the banjo or any instrument out on a stand where you sit all the time, so it keeps jumping in your lap.
Yeah.
The more time it spends here, the more you're going to learn.
Yeah.
And the other thing for guitar players is the 6-string banjos, obviously guitar players can play them right away. And a lot of guitar players feel that they're cheating if they're playing a 6-string. but they don't realize that the six string's been around since the turn of the last century. It's not a new instrument. There's been a lot of very profound recordings done with the six-string banjo. Most of the time, Louis Armstrong's band back in the 20s and 30s used six-string banjos. Some of the best banjo parts on the Kingston Trio record, the banjo part for Reverend Mr. Black and Desert Pete, was played in the studio on a six-string banjo by Glenn Campbell.
Okay.
So the main thing is to not be afraid of the banjo and embrace it. And the banjo doesn't have to replace the guitar, but in any guitar player's repertoire, there'll be a handful of songs that'll do better on the banjo. The rest of the songs need to stay on the guitar. But a banjo, if it's your only instrument, then you're already dedicated to the banjo. But if you're a guitar player, it can be a good addition to your repertoire. And it's got a magical sound. The banjo is historically much older than the guitar. The modern banjo was developed by Joel Sweeney in 1840, but the drum with the string predates wooden boxes with strings by tens of thousands of years. The banjo goes back to prehistoric times, and a wooden box with strings does not. So it's more in our genetic makeup than the guitar. And from 1840, when the modern banjo was developed, until about the 1920s, the banjo had the place in American pop music that the guitar has now because it worked better on stage before amplification. And what knocked the banjo out of center stage, that #1 spot, was Les Paul and the electric guitar. But now we have pickups that really work on the banjo, so we're trying to get that spot back.
I think you're well on your way to claiming it in a way. Thank you so much for taking the time, and it's been really inspiring to just hear your story and the amazing things that you've accomplished in your family business. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.